Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and I'm thrilled to be sharing a cosmic experience of music, technology wise also. So, the artists that you're going to be meeting, one grew up in LA, another in Singapore. Both of them, right now, as I speak to them from New York, are sitting in Chennai. So, that much about the international side of this conversation. And let me bring the makers of album home. First, Sushma Som is here. Then I have Aditya Prakash. Both right now, as I said, are sitting in Chennai. But Aditya went there from LA, and Sushma from Singapore. And as we, with your permission, Aditya, I'll say something about Sushma because this
Yes,
kind of is inspiring that she's one of the 10 women leaders in music in Singapore, and that's here 65 Singapore March 2021. Is that a magazine or something? Here,
Yeah,
I think
it's a
so.
magazine in Singapore. Yeah.
And also, you were recognized as one of the passionate youth driving positive change through their actions by Today paper in Singapore. And you have also been the recipient of prestigious Young Artist Award and many more honors. But we'll go towards the music first. Having said something about Sushma, Aditya, I also am familiar that you grew up in culturally rich environment with your mother being a very well-known classical dancer, and she teaches also in LA.
yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, breaking the tradition, let us begin with Aditya about your love for music. Was it imposed or it was something that you discovered within?
Well, I think it was a bit of both because I really had no other choice. I grew up in that environment. The music I heard in the morning, the first thing was my mother's rhythmic footsteps. She was having rehearsals at her house almost all the time. So, and I would go to sleep with the lullabies of some bhajans and Carnatic songs and a variety of different styles within Indian music. So the soundscape of Indian music was my childhood. So naturally, I think I didn't show any real interest to want to learn. My parents really had to kind of pressure me to learn in the beginning stages. I just wanted to play for fun, and I would bang on the table some rhythms. I would hum some melodies, but in the beginning, my parents didn't to enroll me in the classes, and I think Sushma can also corroborate that a lot of parents when they move to another country from India, they want their children who are born in another country to kind of stay connected to the roots. So, like me, many of my friends learned Carnatic music or Bharatanatyam or different types of Indian arts, and so like that, I enrolled in classes. But um, the idea that I could be a professional artist, I was very lucky to have that because my mother herself is a professional artist and my father supported the arts. And so I kind of had that privilege that I could one day become a professional artist. It's not something that I took seriously, but I mean, as our conversation continues, I can tell you about some of the experiences that I had that kind of led me along that path.
So
But yeah,
I appreciate that, and I'll come back to you. And I remember uh, before interview mentioning that the working title of your upcoming album is Isolation. And I think many
yes,
people, when they move away from India, they have a sense of isolation somewhere, and they
yeah.
try to overcome it in creative ways through art forms also. But let's hear the story of Sushma in terms of your discovery of love for music, and was it your family, somebody else?
Um, Both my grandmothers actually sing. In fact, one of them is 92, and the other day I just spent some time with her, and she was singing just on, Shruti and the pitch, and she was amazing. So, um, it just seemed they would just sing at home. My grandfather, my earliest memory of music is actually my grandfather, sitting in his bench in an old, the old Indian houses, and he would just keep his transistor, the old Indian radio by his ear, and he would just listen, and that's my earliest memory. So that's how I got into it. And like what Aditya said, when my parents moved to Singapore, I think for them Carnatic music was a way of keeping me rooted to the Indian culture. So they enrolled me in classes and I started learning. And yeah, my first teacher would take me along with her to all the temple performances. I remember singing with her at the age of 5 and everything. But after that, I do have to say it became like a something that I just did. I don't think I gave it much thought, or I didn't think of it as something that I loved or something. But then it was much later when I came under the mentorship. I mean, I started learning from Mrs. Lalita Shivakumar, who's who hails from a very legendary family in Carnatic music. And she really kindled my love for music, the way she taught, the way she took me in her home, in her family. And in the last 5 years, I've started learning from my mentor, R.K. Sriram Kumar. And I think that's given me a really new light. The way I perceive Carnatic music and the way I experience it completely changed. Um, and yeah, I think today I can safely say I'm so in love with it, the most in love I've ever been with the form.
So I'll come back to you, and I will remind myself to ask you how your understanding of Carnatic music has changed by learning. But Aditya, you were mentioning that you loved playing on maybe tables, etc., and there was just a joy of being with music. I think that's
Yeah.
what I gather from you. Now the question is, when you do it on your own without having formal training, and how formal training helps you sort of structure your expression of music in a way which is more intensely satisfying. Of course, it is also appreciated by others more. So this
Right.
transition of being a sincere and dedicated learner. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I think music is not an exception from anything. For anything, if we want to gain mastery over it, to be able to express without thinking about the basics. If we want to write poetry, we can't be thinking about the alphabet or grammar. We have to master those basics before we can start writing poems or even writing in general. Just like that, learning music is like learning the alphabets. You have to go through the lessons. They're not exactly fun or exciting all the time. They can be challenging and fun sometimes, but it's an important part of gaining mastery over the technicalities, which once you gain that, then you just have the freedom to explore, and there's endless possibilities. And and there's so much beauty in that freedom, and with that freedom, it doesn't come without rigor, a lot of rigor and practice. And if you want to sing freely like that, there's nothing else besides taking the time and the patience to practice and learn. I think learning with a mentor or a guru in person is the number one. That's the only way. There are obviously exceptions, but I think that one-on-one interaction is absolutely important.
So I must say that talking to both of you is very, very special revelation and verification that with cultural roots and love for art, you connect with that beautiful space which is invisible to many people because they are in 9 to 5 and competitive rhythm of a different kind. So they kind of have blinkers. They don't see many times. They fail to see it. I'm not kind of ridiculing anybody. I'm just looking
Yeah.
at the way the world is. Now, Sushma, coming to you, music, as you mentioned, and remember your grandmother also. So there is one way where any musical instrument draws you towards itself, and sometimes you want to be a singer of some kind who is somewhere in your subconscious that I want to be able to sing like that. So from that point of view, music for you, as well as how Carnatic classical music, which is not very easy for a layman sitting in Singapore And your journey, as earlier you mentioned, um, through training, while you were exposed, the way you perceive music also have undergone some change. Talk to us about that.
I think, I mean, like you rightly pointed out, growing up in Singapore and then practicing Carnatic music, I think, during those years, a huge part of me was very desperate to have others understand the form. So when I would sing, it was very important to me that my Chinese friends or, even my Indian friends who were not initiated to Carnatic music, I really wanted them to understand the form. And so I would think about what would they like? What would they want to hear? How can I make the music easy for them? And I feel like all of those. So me doing music, it really, and the way I would perform publicly, a lot of it depended on how I thought they would perceive it. And I think that is one of the most important changes that's actually gone through in the last 5 years, with my mentor R.K. Sriram Kumar. And I'm also very inspired by T.M. Krishna, who is such a brilliant musician and scholar, and my friends Maitli Prakash and also Aditya there. Where, like learning from them, talking and everything, I realized that, in order for others to really follow you on your journey with music or anything that you do, you have to have the conviction in it first. Like, I have to believe in the form, I have to believe in the power of the form, um, and I have to love it so much so that when others are listening to me, that love is just so infectious. That journey becomes, like something that everyone wants to come on. And I think that's one of the biggest changes that's happened over the last 5 years. And that's because of the way I think my mentor, just seeing the way he handles the music, the way he loves it himself, and the way he plays with it. And like, just it's just the world is an oyster to him because everything he sees is just through music and the way he plays with it. I
So,
realized that, oh my God, I want to be able to achieve that, and the only way I can do it is to fall madly in love with the form that way.
so when
Yeah.
you are in love with somebody, even in person, it is very difficult to explain to another being that what is it about this boy or this girl which kind of makes you think about him or her all the time. The This becomes even more difficult to let people perceive the kind of love that you have. But we are enriched by people who discover it, who share it through their own creative expression. So, uh, and talking to you both tells me that there is so much that we can learn from you. But looking at the limited time that we will have, I want to share the good news that a new album created by Sushma and Aditya is there for us to taste and to enrich and nourish ourselves with music which relates to soul and nature together in a very special manner. So, Aditya, you both have collaborated for this album referred to as Home. Talk to me about how the idea first was floated by Sushma and in what way you creatively collaborated to come up with the tracks that we have in the album.
Well, home has been Sushma's brainchild for quite a while. I've, over the last 5 years, she's been getting very passionate about environmental causes. And music is obviously a big part of her journey. And on her last album, I was a part of the kind of arrangement process, the behind the scenes. And on this album, she said, I want you to be a part of this. I want you to produce this album for me. And I'd never produced even my own album. I'd never produced myself. I just started working on it. So I felt this is a big responsibility. How can I, if I can't even do it for myself, how can I do it for somebody else? And I remember I told her, Sushma, like, I'll try my best, but no promises. But I think she had more faith in me than I had in myself. And she really trusted my vision musically. And I think all of our conversations and us being best friends was a big part of it. And we learned from the same mentors, as she mentioned. So we're kind of in the same way of thinking, the same mode of thinking. And I think this was a big part of what made our combination fit so well. And yeah, I mean, I'll let Sushma take it from
Yeah.
there.
So, Sushma, as you take it from there, what do you think is distinct about home? And when I say distinct, I would also like you to kind of share the relationship between nature and music, especially when we look at it from Indian classical music tradition's point of view.
Um, I think firstly, home itself is it's to me it's very special. It comes from a very personal space because it's an introspection of my relationship with nature, wildlife, sustainability, and that's a part of it. The other part of it is the fact that it's my response to events that I've seen. I was really impacted by a pregnant elephant who was fed pineapple stuffed with explosives and firecrackers in Kerala 2 years ago. And I remember when I read the news, I mourned her death even more than I've ever mourned like a death in my family. I was so affected by that. And I wanted to really find some way to express my disappointment, my devastation, feeling absolutely gutted. But I couldn't just cry about it. I wanted to find some way to actually express that. And I realized that, hey, like music is right there. And how can I use the form to express these feelings that I'm feeling? So to move on to the next question about how is the music special in this is because I think in
So,
some way personally.
here's an
Yeah,
interlude question. So,
yeah,
if there is a poet, he would write something. If a musician, he may make use of lyrics also with music. So, in your case, is a combination of both helps you more in expressing?
yeah, absolutely. So I think the first song in Nature, we explored the lyrics of one of the legendary Tamil poets, Bharatiyar, in which he describes being in nature and being nature itself. And we used his lyrics on that. And then, but there was another song where we wanted to explore rage, but we realized that that's something that's not usually explored in Carnatic music. It's usually the element of bhakti or divinity that is very commonly explored. And even if rage is explored, it's usually with like lyrics saying that, oh Lord, I'm angry with you. Why aren't you coming, to give me your grace? But here we wanted to explore the physicality, like how do I get really tired with my voice and really because I'm so angry. And that's something that even without the use of lyrics or structured sentences and structured poems, we actually tried to explore that just using melody itself.
Yeah, you both
So
both of you would like to share something from the album, not exactly performing, but like you were rehearsing and something came, maybe you exchange your thoughts, and even in that stage, we get a feel of what it is. So maybe the first or any track that you feel like.
I would love to share one of the refrains in the album, which I think is a earworm. Once I start singing it, it's just there in my head all day. And
Go
I've
ahead,
heard
please.
this from a bunch of people, so I'm so happy to share this here. So la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. This is a melody from which was inspired from one of the legendary Carnatic composers, Muthuswami Dikshithar. So we used his melody and we created a piece with it.
This gives a sense of joy as well as console somewhere as one listens to this, is my feeling about what I heard from you. But Aditya,
Oh,
you want to say something from the point of view of the creative process? Anything?
sorry. Do you mind repeating that? I think you had
No
just
problem. Like
broken.
she shared this tune that came to her and was inspired from where she mentioned. In your case, while both of you were working, what kind of exchange of ideas took place? Or were you always in agreement? Was there any kind of creative fight? So
Yeah. No, there was, I think in the beginning process, I think we were kind of on the same page, and for me, the challenge was making sure that I'm really tapping into her voice and not using what I'm comfortable with, like pushing what my strengths are. It's easy for me to go to that. So to really know what her strengths are and know how to push her, how to encourage her, how to really build on what her skills are, and find areas that like untapped areas. And I think the most memorable for me was there's the Elephant's Funeral, the song where the way she sung, I've never heard her sing like that. And I remember just the session where I was just telling her, the first time she sang it for me, I said, because when she spoke about the actual event, she was crying. She was just so emotional. But when she sang, I didn't feel that. And I felt like she was just singing it beautifully, but the emotion wasn't there.
you
And
you want to sing slightly, that one, Sushma?
you want to sing that?
Sure,
The,
sure, I can, but I mean, I have to get into the emotion itself of it. But yeah, the melody itself goes like. And then it
yeah,
goes.
so
That's a
Yeah.
line.
So Aditya, let me mention that though I don't understand the words, but the tune takes you to a sort of sad space where you deeply feel some departure, or what you already
yeah,
told me, but that's actually
right.
palpable
That's what you
in
felt.
the tune.
Right, right.
Mhm.
When the simple thing that I noticed, and when she first sang it, she was singing like when we sing a concert, we sing upright, and we sing everything is like perfect. And she sang it like that. So I tried to ask her, when you're sad, you don't sit up straight. You can barely even, you're hunched over. You can barely even keep your body upright. So I asked her to just try and mimic that position itself and see if that changes how she sings. And it did. I've never tried that on myself, but I tried it on her. And I remember that that
Good
was
observation.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing that just the way you shape your body can inform how because the voice is it's a part of the body. So you have your emotions have to be in tune, your body presence has to be in tune, and then the voice will be in tune also, and that's when the magic happens. And so it was really special for me to be a part of that process, watching someone else do it.
So
Then
once
I
again,
know how to do it for myself.
absolutely. So once again, I would like our viewers to learn that both of you are sitting in Chennai. You have collaborated on an album which is titled Home, and Aditya is in Chennai from LA. He grew up there, and Sushma from Singapore, and both of you are professional artists as well. So, mm how was this reaching to a comfort level in terms of your acceptability as well as the conviction for both of you, uh, because even in India, becoming a professional artist is not a piece of cake. So of course both of you are very much talented, and you are devoted, dedicated to your art. And so uh, uh, with this question, I'll also add, those of our viewers who want to learn more about your album Home, or want to get it, where they can sort of reach for this. Yeah.
So home will be available on all streaming platforms such as Spotify, YouTube Music, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon Music, everything on April 8th,
Very good.
Friday, April 8th. Yeah. And I would also really love if the viewers could support me on Bandcamp. So it's Sushma on Bandcamp, Sushma Soma on Bandcamp.
What is Cam?
Um,
Spell that right.
Bandcamp, BAND, a band, BANDCAMP,
Okay.
bandcamp.com. So they, where they can buy the album itself instead of just streaming it, they can buy it and download it.
Yeah.
So I would really love, if the viewers could also support, artists like by downloading the music
It
and
is
if they
called
want to
bandcamp.org.
.com.
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 Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they can search for Sushma Soma there.
So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really hope that's right. Yeah, on Bandcamp.
And so wonderful. How convinced you are that it was the right decision to become a professional artist, and was there any looking back?
Um, Aditya, would you want to go first?
No, you go ahead. I'll take it after you.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm a CA. I'm a chartered accountant, and so my first job was with one of the top accounting firms. I was a tax accountant at PricewaterhouseCoopers. But I remember when I was there and when I was working after my undergrad, I would constantly keep humming. I would constantly keep singing. And at that time, I realized, wait, what am I doing here? Like, if I'm constantly humming and singing, I should be somewhere else. And that's why I made the move, to India to pursue music full time. And it's not been easy. I think, moving here as an outsider, getting to know how the industry works, getting to know people, everything's been a long journey and challenging journey. But I have to say, I mean, that's something Aditya mentioned in the beginning, that we're privileged enough. Like, I've always had the support of my parents and family to be able to pursue this art form, without worrying about, finances or anything, to be honest. So I think that's something that I realized, and because I realized that, I feel even a stronger onus and a sense of responsibility to pursue this art form in a very earnest way, because
So,
I really want to be able to give it my best.
so I want to thank you for taking this step. I want to congratulate you, as well as I extend my lots of good wishes for your journey as an artist, as well as for this album Home, which I'm sure many
Thank you.
would support and enjoy. Aditya, same question for you as we conclude.
Well, yes, like I mentioned, I grew up in an artist family, but it wasn't, I didn't ever think one day I'm going to be a professional artist. I actually thought maybe I would go into engineering or something like my father did. But I remember I toured with Pandit Ravi Shankar when I was 16. I was applying for colleges, and he told me that I have to be a professional musician. He said I have the talent and I have the kind of passion. He saw this kind of interest in me, and he said he even told me to leave off college and go straight into it. And so hearing that from a master like him was really the push that set me.
Absolutely.
And that kind of encouragement kept building. So I just knew that I was obsessed with it. This is the only thing I wanted to do. And like Sushma said, it's only because of privilege of having the kind of support from my family. They didn't say, no, you have to do something else. You can't do music. And I know a lot of people that have had that and they couldn't pursue music. And so we both are very lucky that we could. Um, and yeah, it's nothing but privilege that allows us to practice this way. And now it's our duty to, as Sushma said, to make the most of this.
Absolutely. So I
And yeah,
appreciate the presence of Aditya Prakash and Sushma Soma for this conversation.
Thank you for
While
having us.
thank you, Ashokji.
it was indeed a joy, and I once again relate to your expression that there is so much beauty in music, and to be able to slip into that space and flow with a sense of surrender to the vastness unfolded by music is the privilege that you are generously sharing with others through your creative expressions, including album Home. So lots of good wishes to both of you.
Thank
Thank
And
you.
you. Thank you.
and while I extend my thanks and good wishes for Aditya and Sushma, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Ashok Vyas, Namaste.